All right, you currently own a rental property inside of a limited liability company and you're attempting to refinance it. But your lender just told you that in order to do the refi, they want you to deed that property out of the LLC and put it back in your personal name. Now, you might be wondering, do you have to do that? And if you do it, what happens to your asset protection going forwards? Hi, I'm Clint Coons. I'm an attorney. I'm a real estate investor. And before you sign that deed transferring that property out of an asset protection structure, okay, let's look at why the lender is asking you to do this and what your alternatives are and how you might be able to set it up and avoid having to transfer that property out into your individual name. All right, let's get started. Okay, so what's going on here when it comes to real estate and lenders and understanding the structure? So what I want to do is I'll just show you what we're faced with all the time. I run into this many times in my practice where a real estate investor will reach out to us and they have this property and they're looking to do a refi on the property. Now, the lender will tell them they're going to pull title and they're immediately going to see that this property is held in an LLC. And the lender is going to say, all right, in order to do the refi, we want you to pull the property out, investor, and put that property back into your name. And then you can do the refi. And oh, by the way, once we've done the refi, you cannot transfer it back into your LLC because that's going to violate the due on sale clause. And that means that we can then accelerate the note. Now, why are you being told this? Let's start with that, and then I'll show you some ways around this. So here's what's happening here. Most lenders that many people seek out when they're looking for refis, they're going to be doing conventional loans, all right? So what does a conventional loan mean in terms of financing? How does that impact you? Well, see, a conventional loan is typically underwritten with Freddie or Fannie guidelines. And so that means that the lender is using Freddie and Fannie guidelines in order to put that loan together. And one of the things that Freddie and Fannie state that if you're dealing with residential real estate, 4 units or less, then those loans, in order to loan on property like that, it has to be in an individual's name, okay? That's considered to be residential real estate. It has to be in an individual's name. Now, why are they doing this, lenders doing this? It's because they want to sell your loan. They're not going to hold on to it. They're going to sell it to Freddie or Fannie. And so in order to sell it to Freddie or Fannie, they have to comply with their underwriting guidelines. That's why they're telling you, move it out of the LLC and put it into your own name. And oh, don't put it back into the LLC because that's going to make it hard for us to sell it to Freddie or Fannie. Now, here's the funny thing about this. When Freddie or Fannie own your loan, you can put that property into the LLC. And we do this all the time with people. Well, we set up LLCs for. If they have rental real estate, it's in their personal name. One of the first things we'll do is we'll check, is this loan currently owned by Freddie or Fannie? It's real simple. Just go to the web, search Freddie loan lookup tool, and then you'll see where you come to this website and put in the information. It'll tell you if they own it, and then do the same thing with Fannie. And if the answer is yes, then boom, we move the property into the LLC. But for the financing process, just for taking title or refinancing property, it has to be in your name. So that's the problem you run into, and that's why you're being told that by a lender. Now, a lot of times people think, well, can there be a creative workaround for residential conventional mortgages? How about this? How about if I take the property, and this actually came up last week when I was talking to someone. What they did is they reached out and they said, Clint, can you create for me a land trust? I want to create a land trust right here, and I want to deed my property into the land trust, and then I will be the beneficiary of the land trust. How about we do that? Would that work to get this conventional refi done? Well, possibly. Okay, so here's one of the areas in which if you want to go conventional, you might have an opening here. And that is to use a trust. Now, here's what will not work. You cannot use a land trust, okay? So we talk about it in terms, what a land trust is, but you're never going to be able to get that past your underwriter for the lender with whom you're working because they will not underwrite in a land trust. Because again, just as I talked about Freddie or Fannie wanting to buy properties that are held in an individual's name, the same thing applies with trusts. There's only 2 states that I'm aware of where you can actually do a refi in a land trust, and still the lender can sell it to Freddie or Fannie. That is Illinois and Florida. So if that property's in Illinois or Florida, it would probably work. But if it's outside of that state, it's not going to happen. So then what do? Well, you don't call it a land trust. And so as I explained to this individual, yes, we could do it, but we're not going to call it a land trust. Instead, we're going to set up a grantor trust. Okay, we're going to set up a grantor trust, and I want you to deed the property into the grantor trust. Now, when you deed it into the grantor trust, it looks a lot different than a land trust, okay, from the trust agreement itself, because a land trust is drafted in a very specific way because we wanted to do certain things. This grantor trust here that we're putting the property into, well, this looks a lot like a living trust, okay? And that's intentional. We want it to look that way because conventional lenders oftentimes will be willing to lend to a grantor trust, a living trust style trust, and they're going to want to review it, okay? You're going to have to send it into them. So even if we call this a grantor trust, it's not going to get us our loan because the underwriter is going to tell the broker, hey, I need to see a copy of the trust. So you have to package it in a way in which they're comfortable in issuing out the loan. So you use a living trust, essentially, this grantor trust. So we put it in the grantor trust. This is a one-off trust only to hold this property. And so if you look at our trust, when I create these, and I've done hundreds of these just for the people I work with, our office here at Anderson, thousands of trusts like this. So when you look at the trust, it will typically have, let's say this person here, his name is Fred. Okay, it'll say Fred is the grantor, Fred is the trustee, and Fred is the beneficiary of this trust. And then when Fred's gone, then it's Fred's kids or spouse or something like that. So it looks just like a living trust. That'll get us the refi, and it'll stay in the trust name. It never comes into your personal name. Now, I did say Fred's going to be the trustee. That's one area where what we like to do is we'd like to use a nominee trustee there. So technically, we wouldn't use Fred. We would use an attorney from my office in that position. We've done this thousands upon thousands of times for people where I myself, I don't know how many I'm on, probably easily over 15,000 trusts I'm listed as a nominee trustee. And I've helped clients get loans this way. Why? Because they don't want the title to show up in their name. Because when you deed the property from the LLC to this trust, do you want it to go from Big Sky LLC to Fred as trustee of the Fred Family Trust? I don't think so. How about this? The property goes from Big Sky LLC to Clint as trustee of, now we're not going to call it Fred Family Trust because that blows the whole anonymity there, of the Big Bad Trust. All right, now see, Fred's name's off title, but we've packaged it in a way in which it looks presentable to a lender. And then we can get a refi done on that particular property. Now, if you're going to do this strategy, the first thing you need to ask that conventional lender is, do you accept a grantor trust on title in order to get a refi done? Will you accept that? So don't tell them how you're set up at all before you do this. First, have the conversation. First, get the property transferred, and then go back to them to do the refi. So the mistake that I see a lot of people make, they'll walk into the lender and say, hey, I've got this property in LLC and I'll move it to a trust. Can we do the deal? You've given them way too much information. Okay, so that's how you deal with a conventional lender. Now, if you don't want to go that route, I've got some other ones for you to think about. So the next option, if you have a property in a limited liability company, just like this, and you don't want to have to transfer it out and put it into a trust or put it into your own name, then what you need to look for is two particular types of lenders, okay, or loans. You want to do what's called a DSCR loan, okay? Now, what is a DSCR loan? It's what is referred to as a debt service coverage ratio loan. So in plain old terms, it means this. Hey, we're going to loan you some money on this property, do a refi on you. Will the rents cover the payments? That's all they're looking for, okay? and they're looking for a ratio there. As long as the answer to this is yes, then you're probably going to get the loan. Now, they do also look at many times your experience. So if this is your first deal, probably not going to happen. They're going to want to see that you have some experience, you're experienced landlord, in order to make this work. So there's also an experience component to these loans. But the thing about these types of loans is that you're able to obtain them inside of a limited liability company. Okay, they're not concerned about the Freddie, Fannie stuff, underwriting guidelines. This is a different type of loan that you can seek out. And there are plenty of DSCR lenders out there. Now, if you don't want to go that route, then your next option is to look for what is referred to as a portfolio lender. Okay, so a portfolio lender is a lender that is going to keep the loan. That means they don't plan to sell it to anyone else. They hold it in-house. So how do you find these types of lenders? Well, you'd be surprised. There's one in your city right now, probably more than one, probably 2 or 3 of them. You see, these types of lenders are community banks. All right, they're community banks. And see, with community banks, they hold the note. So they service the note. They're taking care of everything. So they have different underwriting guidelines than the mortgage broker that's out, that you met on the internet or just down the street and you went in to get your loan through, because they're the Freddie Fannie type. They're getting money, doing the loan, and then they're selling it to get the money back. Whereas with a portfolio lender, community bank, they're taking their investors' money, their bank clients' money, and they're loaning it out. And then they're charging you interest and then giving their depositors a return on their savings, and they're taking the spread. So they're holding on to these assets. Now, the thing about a portfolio lender that you're working with here, they have the similar approach that the DSCR loan has, and that is they will loan to LLCs. I've done it myself. You can refi in an LLC as well. But there is something that I want you to be aware of if you're going to go down this route. Okay, you have to be a little proactive here. So what am I talking about? Every time this comes up with a client, in fact, at my events, my live events, if you want to attend one of these live in-person events, you're going to hear me talk about this, is that you need to establish relationships with community lenders prior to asking for money. That's been my experience. So what I would do is I would go down to the community lender and I'd open up an account, put some money into it just to say, hey, now I'm part of the tribe. So then when you go back to them and you're asking for a loan, they know who you are, right? They see that you want to do business with them, then they want to do business with you. So that's a key aspect of doing this. Develop these relationships. I tell all my investors or people that come to my events, one of the things I want them to do when they go back after the event is to, if they don't have one already, is to create a relationship with the community lender. Put 1,000, put 5,000 in the account, whatever. Just build that relationship, because you never know when you're going to be in a situation like this where you have to do a refi and you want to be able to keep that loan or that property in the LLC. Now, if you're new to all this, you're wondering, well, Clint, why not just put it in my own name? Well, I already talked about this. You see, when you transfer the title out and you put it in your own name, if you set the structure up properly, then you're going to lose this, right? You're going to lose anonymity. Because if you built the LLC with the right type of entity stack and you have the right system in place, then that LLC should never point back to you. It should point to a Wyoming holding company like this. And then that you own the Wyoming holding LLC. So no one knows you're involved with that asset. But as soon as you transfer that property out of the LLC and you put your name in the chain of title, it's all given up at that point in time. So that's why people want to refi property in LLCs. Not to mention it's a hassle. Sometimes what happens when you pull property out of an LLC, you could inadvertently trigger a tax cap reset on your property, or you could trigger a transfer tax fee to get it out, and then to put it back in, they hit you with a second fee. So there's a lot of different scenarios there that make it very unattractive to pull assets out. And so I meet people who then feel like they're stuck, they can't refi, get some of that equity that's in their property so they can flip it into another deal. It's because they just don't know there are opportunities there in order to do that. So if you're thinking about refining a property that's currently held in an LLC, you see that there are options for you. Choose the right path. Make sure you're communicating with your lender ahead of time so they're not caught off guard when you ultimately come to them with the final structure in place on how you want to put the deal together. And you're probably much better off than the other guy that's just walking into the bank with the property in the LLC and saying, what do I do now? Those people don't get deals done like I just described. Hey guys, if you liked the video, be sure to smash the like button, and you know what else to do. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. Hey, I wish you all the best with your investing.